We would like to commence our event with our first panel discussion on the topic Notes from the MarTech Kurukshetra. For this, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Francis Rodrigues, to the stage. Francis oversees the P&L for HDFC Life's e-commerce business, managing assets like the corporate website, mobile application, and buying journeys. He leads digital and performance marketing along with contact center fulfillment. His key achievements include revamping the HDFC Life's website, implementing a dedicated CRM for online business, and enhancing marketing automation. His efforts in the brand marketing, search marketing, social media, SEO, and customer journey optimization have positioned HDFC Life as the top private life insurer in searches and online revenue. With over 15 years at HDFC Life, Francis has held roles in the data labs, business insights, innovation, customer value management, and strategy. He brings nearly 2 decades of leadership experience across BFSI, FMCG, and consumer durables, excelling in scaling functions and driving growth. Francis holds an MBA from NMIMS Mumbai, is a CFA chartered holder, and has a bachelor's in electronics engineering. Welcome to the panel, Francis. Let me now welcome our second speaker, Girish Kalra. Girish is the Chief Marketing Officer at Tata AIA Life Insurance. He is an avid marketer and communicator with over 2 decades of experience across traditional and digital marketing, corporate communication, consumer propositions, etc. He has had impactful stints with companies in the maturity as well as the initiation phase. His diverse experience across advertising, consumer goods, mutual funds, and insurance has enabled him to take up interesting projects that positively influence consumer behavior, demand, and experience with the brands that he has worked with. In his personal time, he loves to read about technology trends and its impact on business and life. He is also keen on going into the depth of human life, including the spiritual side of our living. Girish is based in Mumbai and loves to travel for work and leisure. Welcome, Girish. To round off the first panel, we have the third speaker, Vivek Gupta. Vivek is a life insurance veteran with nearly 2 decades of experience spanning strategy, digital and innovation, customer centricity, data, process design, PMO, business solutions, operations excellence, and customer experience. Vivek has been with ICICI Prudential, PNB MetLife, and is currently with Bajaj Allianz Life. He has been instrumental in launching industry-first innovations like world's first virtual reality customer experience platform, India's first conversational app in insurance, and Smart Assist, world's first app-to-browser secured screen sharing platform, amongst others. Vivek has also been recognized as Digital Transformation Leader of the Year. Vivek has a master's in business management in finance and marketing and is also certified project management expert and design thinking practitioner with expertise in taxation laws. Welcome, Vivek. I would now like to welcome Shubham Chandrayan, Senior Director, Customer Success, Lemnisk, as the moderator of the panel. Welcome.
Welcome to the first discussion of the evening. During this discussion, we basically want to sort of pick your brains and understand your notes from the MarTech Kurukshetra, specifically in today's world where technology is growing so fast with things like AI evolving as fast as it is. I'm sure it's very difficult for you to also sort of understand what is it that you exactly need and what is probably just fluff around the buzzwords or what is just a buzzword. And we wanted to sort of understand how do you identify, what is it that you really need versus what, the next shiny thing that probably a salesperson is trying to shove down your throat, right? So, and just sort of leading from that introduction, the first thing that I wanted to sort of understand is exactly how do you evaluate technology? How do you understand, what is usable, what is probably just a buzzword, and how do you sort of, at the same time, how do you stay ahead of this tech adoption game, right? And and at the same time is something that makes sense for you as well. So, maybe Francis.
A lot of fundamentals of business continue to remain the same. I think what's happening, especially in India, is that you're seeing a lot more happening from an end customer perspective. I mean, if somebody had asked me, would a 10-minute QSR be possible, say 10 years ago, I would have said, मेरे को नहीं लगता है. I don't think so, right? But we've seen that change considerably, which basically keeps, makes me wonder, why we still take so long to issue policies, but still. But having said that, I think, a lot of change in technology is as well as, change in customer sentiments is predicated by what is the customer thinking today. And that's a function of broadly what convenience or what problem does technology solve. So if you have something which genuinely solves a customer problem, right? And it can be small problems also, right? So for example, you had to go and remember your net banking ID, password, etc. to ensure that you kind of paid your credit cards on time. And now you simply kind of do it over credit or whatever, or any other app that is there. It could be a small problem with that, or it could be a really big problem. As long as that happens, I think that technology is valuable and it's important. So that's a good sort of simple metric to measure as to what consumer problems it's solving, and basically how well is it going to make the life slightly more better or slightly more easier for the customer.
From an enabler perspective, to say that this may not lead to the final outcome from a business perspective, from a, say, a consumer metrics perspective, but is this going to enable a sort of change or, boost things with the larger ecosystem? So I think we look at both the things, because when it comes to tech, like things like CDP and all, and you're absolutely right, when the pitch is made, it's like you see as if, how could we exist without a tech like this? But the moment you buy into the system and you just wonder where did all that go. But I think the enabling aspect gives us a good perspective that, and also it gives the confidence to not just us, but also the management that, yes, they have a visibility on this and this is how things will come out. So these are the two measures.
Interesting. So Vivek, you have over time, actually we heard in your introduction as well, there's a lot of innovation that you've brought with your business innovations team as well. So yeah, I wanted to hear your thought on how do you sort of get out of that noise.
Yeah, first I would like to apologize to the audience. बहुत सारा लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सुनोगे आप लोग यहाँ पे, बिकॉज ऑल थ्री अस आर फ्रॉम लाइफ इंश्योरेंस. इतना लाइफ इंश्योरेंस हम लोग कस्टमर्स भी नहीं सुनते, अदरवाइज दे वुड हैव बॉट लॉट ऑफ पॉलिसीज फ्रॉम अस. But jokes apart, see what happens, and I'll give you a little backstory on that. During my introduction, you would have heard about virtual reality based. This was the introduction of last year, so they have played it this year. In this virtual reality based customer service platform which we made, that time virtual reality was the buzzword in the town, and you learn from your own failures, right? So we also went with this buzzword. Okay, virtual reality is the in thing. We created a good customer service platform where the customer will come, will wear the headset and will do the servicing. We thought that we have changed the world here. After maybe a couple of years, we realized that that's not working. That was the buzzword, like he mentioned. Someone sold us that technology. So it's very important. And why this backstory was there, it's very important that you realize that you will not be having big innovations in your regular day-to-day work. You will have incremental, if I can call innovations or incremental benefits for the organization. And you have to see where those technology is going to take you there. Once in a while, there will be a solution which will come, which will change the way your business is working. Otherwise, it will be incremental benefits. So I'll give you another example. We are working on a Gen AI-based solution, something called Smart Pitch, where we have more than 1.5 lakh agents. Agents are those freelance which don't actually have full-time employment with us. They do something else along with they sell the policies as well. Plus we have 30 plus banks with us. Now teaching everyone our products, if you ask me my own products, I may not be able to tell all the features of all the 30 odd products which we sell. So just imagine a newbie selling all the stuff. So what we did is we created a platform where the pitches will be received by the person before basis the customer's persona. Persona means like your age, salary range, your lifestyle, your life stage, all those things. Now if I have to do this in a traditional way, I'll require 55 lakh permutation combinations to do that. But with the new technology coming in, I could do it maybe in 3-4 days. That's how the technology will help you in creating solutions. Another example you can say is if we just look at hindsight is always a good thing to it makes lives very easy. So if we go 1 year back in terms of AI, what used to happen? We used to use it just from a life insurance perspective. We used to use in underwriting, which is basically checking the life of a customer, whether we want to give the policy, fraud detection, chatbots, or maybe a CDP kind of technology where we were identifying what time and date or what type of creative we need to send the customer. Now, with technology, it's changing so fast that now we can generate the content, we can send the different types of content, we can and get the analysis of that as well. So important to look at from a lens that it's not just saving us cost, it's also making us more agile. What used to take me 3 months to do, today I can maybe do it in 2 days. That's what the technology is helping us, and that's how it needs to be evaluated.
Great point. So, and we might probably continue with you since you have the mic. We talked of all of this technology that you've adopted over the years, and it's not like your organizations are 5 years old or 10-year-old organizations. Like, these are massive organizations that have been doing this for years and years now, which means at any given point in time, you probably have a mixed stack of new age technologies and old legacy technologies. And I also understand that change management isn't as easy as it sounds to a customer success manager like me, who would probably be pushing you on a day-to-day basis, integrate your CRM with us, integrate your LMS with us. It's definitely a very difficult task. We understand that. So how do you, whenever you're looking at a new piece of technology, how do you ensure, one, it is properly integrated to your legacy stack, as well as things that you might have acquired 2 years back or 3 years back or 4 years back? And how do you ensure smooth transition? Because change management, I understand, is as difficult as it gets for an organization your size, right?
Yeah, very rightly said. Just to give you an example of Bajaj Allianz, we have a core system called Opus. Now, this is a system which is around 30-40 years old. Naturally, Bajaj Allianz is not that old, but because we have Allianz as a partner, we have this system which is pretty old. We are in the process of transiting into a new policy admin system. So those who are not from life insurance, policy admin system is the backbone of the whole industry. So whole complete data of the customer and the distributor, everything is based in policy admin system. Now just imagine me migration project is going on in the organization from a legacy system to a new system, and we try to integrate a platform like CDP into it. It's not going to happen. It's the priority of the organization will always be how successful the migration of the legacy system is. Hence what we did was, and I believe that's the way it should be in most of the cases, is that we created a layer on top of both the systems to have a seamless data flow between both the systems. This layer we call something called as Customer 360. It has more than 500 attributes of the customer from across both the systems. And from this, we have integrated a CDP layer. So here my distributor also gets to see that. My backend team also integrates the API, this is there, and then we are able to integrate any changes which come into CDP, on any new technology and build it into it. So that's how we have worked on the legacy part of it.
So probably I'll put this to Girish. Again, two giant organizations coming together, AIA and Tata. I'm sure you also have a massive stack of legacy as well as new age technologies. How do you tackle that on a day-to-day basis, and how difficult is change management for you, and how do you sort of go around that?
So I'll tell you, when you look at tackling this, honestly, I don't have the answer to this. We've also been trying to figure out the answer to this, because yes, we do have not 40 years, but 20 years of legacy systems. The private sector came to life in 2001, so it's been about 23 years now. So there is no clear answer that, this is how we'll tackle the thing. What we really see is that once you get into implementation is when the worms start coming out and you say, oh shit, we didn't see that and this was not so evident and things like that. So I think the way to go ahead is be cognizant of that, and I think that also helps you in the change management part and making sure that you're not going overboard with the expectations to the management, saying, it will be a 5x jump in business and all that stuff. But yeah, you basically need to sort of, to the extent possible, and this is where I sort of push our vendors to at the point when the pitch is happening, that imagine that you came on board, and now let's talk, what is it that you offer to us? And we try and also in that situation make the compensation, like, rather than saying, okay, you buy this tech from me, this is the expense it's going to be for you, whatever retainer and fixed cost, to saying that, can you be a partner in this journey? That this is what you're promising to me, saying as this is going to be the benefit out of it, so much X times increase in business. So instead of saying that I'll pay you $100 for it, let me pay you $70 here, and over there I'll pay you, say, $40. So eventually you make more money, but then the thing which will work out is you will put in your best to make sure that this thing works. I'll put in my best. In the process, both of us will work. So I think that's the way we try and get those deals through. And the other thing is, of course, you go step by step to say, okay, there are these 30 use cases that you told me are possible. Let's try the first 3. Let's show that this works, and let's learn from that. Also convinces the management to say that yes, because everybody today is in the quarterly results world, so you want to see results fast. So the moment you break it into use cases and say, okay, these 3, you said this, more or less you are there, I think that is the way it works. Coming to the point of change management, I would say it's a big task, and I would say it's twice more difficult than actually choosing the tech, because there you're talking of basically getting people along, right? You're trying to get your own people along, that this is something new and I want to use it. At the same time, you're getting other functions to work along with you. So it's again, it's more about sort of how do you approach them. Saying, if you were to say that, okay, we have this tech, this is what it's going to do to us, it will this and that. Intuitively, I don't think the other party will be recipient to that. Saying it's all about for them, right? They will benefit, they will look good and things like that. So why should I be helping them? But the idea is to say that if you become a partner to this, and this is how mutually it will help us. And actually there, if you try and keep a little backseat and push the other entity forward, make them more visible, I think that is something which we've seen work. Otherwise, it's a very tricky area.
So you mentioned 3 very interesting things, right? There's change management, of course. There's business outcome, and then there's, of course, technical effort of integrations as well, right? So when you're taking that decision on day one, how much weightage do you give to each of these, or is it, as in terms of, do you look at business outcomes as probably, as business people, of course, that's probably the biggest weightage, but then change management and technological effort, how do you look at these 3?
So I would first put business outcomes, and the reason I say that is because you're investing money into that. So you, of course, that's the demand a business is going to make with you, saying finally what happened. And I would say in India the way it works is this classic word called jugaad. So tax se nahi hota, aise ho hi jata hai, right? And the insurance industry is known for that. Last, maybe make sure things work out. So business is, of course, looking at what is the investment. That's the world in which we look at. So yeah, that would be the first one. Second, I would say more or less very close to it is change management, because it is the people who will make it work. Tech, I would say I give the least importance, and the reason I do that is, like you said in your introductory part, to say that literally every 6 months there is absolutely a completely new thing. So the CDP that which we have today, in 6 months you guys will only come to us and say this is very old stuff, and we have a entirely new thing. So I don't think we should rely too much on the tech of today.
I think that's for a product team also, which is here, for them to note. Okay, so Francis, you also come from probably one of the bigger group organizations, at least in India. There's a bank, there are different insurance companies as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of mandate that comes your way versus there's a lot of decisions that you have to take for yourself. Wanted to understand your views on How do you look at legacy systems that are being thrown your way? Do you always have to adopt it? And how do you measure, a new system coming in? How do you integrate that? How do you go about that as well?
So number one, I think at least HDFC as a group, and I can speak in the limited capacity, I've just worked with one of its companies for 15 years, but does not kind of push or mandate any usage of system across. Each of the individual companies has fairly an independent sort of set of evaluations to do that. There will be some common sort of guidelines around things like ensuring InfoSec, ensuring some of the other pieces of security, and whatever is regulatorily required. Definitely, that though is law of land. But beyond that, there is not much of an insistence. Yes, there is that if you choose and you decide to work with the same partner, then yes, there is some exchange of notes to figure out how we can kind of improve the best possible deal for the group as a whole. Right. So that's basically some amount of it. That's more on the procurement side rather than on the tech mandate side. Right. So that was number one. Number two, I think a lot of how to integrate has already been kind of covered. But let me just tell you a couple of things that I think are important. So one is, use case by use case, start building things. Simply, if you kind of also at each stage and each point, there is this thought process around, okay, what is the optimum amount of integration? In the sense, if I do it only for the use case, I might end up saying that, okay, every time I need 2 more fields, I need to go build another 2 APIs, whatever else, right? So it cannot be as basic as that. At the same time, it's not like, okay, let's do everything and then only we'll start, right? So it has to be how to optimize at each stage is how much, I mean, obviously more is good, but how much is good enough, and kind of move ahead with that. The second fairly important piece is to kind of ensure that there is, again, taking a leaf from change management, it is basically implementation and outcome. Right? If you have success in smaller use cases, it becomes much more easier to go and sell a larger use case to the organization, right? Internally also. So you said, okay, yes, we tried this, it's worked. This is the improvements that we see in all these metrics. Hopefully, if it's a revenue metric or a cost reduction metric, which is some financial metric directly getting impacted, the much better. Right? It's therefore becomes much more easier to have your second and third order conversations of what to do more. Right. Finally, I think there is this whole thing about is everybody in it together? I mean, only business-driven change may ignore a lot of things which are required from an overall IT perspective, and an only IT-driven change may not necessarily kind of have business completely on board when it comes to ensuring adoption and ensuring that there is an outcome which is kind of coming from this entire piece. So ensuring that partnership is kind of moving smoothly, I think that's fairly important across various integrations.
Interesting, and that brings me to probably the next rabbit hole that I wanted to go into, and maybe I'll want to start with you, Girish. We've talked of technology and business as two different groups, but within business as well, and I'm sure within your teams as well, you're looking at multiple different goals. There's new customer acquisition, there's retention, there's branding, and all of those. So when you're start of the year, when you're looking at strategies, or when you're not just start of the year, but also when you're trying to probably onboard a new tool or a new technology, like Francis mentioned, you would probably want to start small with a couple of use cases that go into it. How do you ensure lateral integration there, and where do you start? Like, how do you make sure that everybody around that benefits from it, but at the same time, I don't want everybody to be jumping into that pool at the same time. So how do you go about that?
See, if it starts with, are you sort of, asking a vendor, okay, come and meet me and tell me what's new? Or is it like, basis your understanding of the business, you say, this is where I think either the impact could be much better, or certain efficiency parameters can be much better. So I think you start at that point, and then of course you scout around saying, what are the ways to do this? And again, I can say that, in not every case tech works or tech is required. You have cases where you say that, the way the funnel is, I can optimize the funnel in other ways, not necessarily tech coming in. So I think you need that conviction within you to say that, okay, what is it that I need to do and how I need to do it. Tech should be the last part to say that, okay, it will solve this problem. So I think we start off that way. And then, of course, whichever tech you look at and all, I think the point which I was trying to make earlier also is don't go too much into the technicals. Like, okay, this system has this features, this features, this features, because it actually, what happens is the more feature driven, the more sort of rigid system you have, the bigger problem it creates for you. Like, honestly, when we talk about legacy systems, especially in our case, I can say I don't think we have the solution to that. And it's not easy. You may know the solution, but at the end of the day, is it a cost-effective solution? And at times you just consciously say, let me live through this, because that investment otherwise is too huge. And if it's going to take me 10 years to get that investment out and start seeing the real benefits out of it, I would rather not do that, because I'm very sure Lemnisk will come in 2 years and say that, okay, here is something that we want to offer you. So I can't say there is a clear answer to this, but I think it's all about the clarity that you have, the clarity that you can give to your organization, and that's how you move forward.
So just expanding on that part, and I'll keep tech aside for a bit, right? Start of the year again, when you look at business goals for that year, that goal will divide into smaller goals for each of these teams when you talk of branding, retention, customer acquisition and all that. How do you ensure that permeates properly so that each team has their own smaller strategy that leads to that one final goal?
So in our case, it's a bit different. We don't look at goals at the beginning of the year saying, okay, next year, FY26, I need to achieve so much business or so much things. We actually go through a 3-year cycle. So saying, if I am planning for today, I'm planning for the goals for the next 3 years. It sort of gives you a sense of continuity and that longer, slightly medium-term visibility that, okay, this is where we want to achieve, what we want to achieve. And then, of course, you break it into what is it possible this year, what is possible next year. So any sort of tech that we want to bring into the system or any new initiative that we want to start, any change in the funnel is seen from that lens rather than a single year.
Vivek, I'll probably ask you the same question, but from your perspective as well, if you're looking at it from business innovations point of view or purely from marketing point of view, when you look at your funnel, how do you make sure how you envision your funnel permeates down to your teams, and each of those teams sort of work towards that funnel finally looking the way that you want it to look by the end of the year or by end of the quarter, if that is how you work? How do you do?
Fact is that funnel is only an input parameter. So you have to look at business output, the growth or the business numbers as the output parameters. And just to take the point which Girish mentioned, we have a cycle of 4 years every year, which we plan for. So every year we have something called long range strategy planning, LRS, which we call it. Every year we plan for the next 4 years. And here the blue sky thinking comes into picture, where what we do here is that we plan, maybe these are the technologies which are coming into picture, these are the business goals we want to achieve, these are the kind of projects or use cases which we are seeing. And something which Francis mentioned, not necessarily you go with the big project immediately, but you just test the waters there. So we go with those use cases where we can test the waters in the first few months. Now, with MarTech solutions, especially if I have to talk about, the ROI calculation becomes very difficult. So ROI is if I have to say, ROI is the most binding factor for any project in the organization if you have to prioritize. With MarTech, it becomes very difficult because how do you attribute it? That because of MarTech, it has, the customer has actually bought your policy, if I have to talk in life insurance language. There can be some direct attributes. You may say that maybe just for example, you have sent an email to a customer has clicked on the link and has bought the policy. So you can attribute it directly because you have those tools. Otherwise, how would you do it? Maybe customer is window shopping, you have sent it, customers went on multiple websites, bought it or bought to a distributor. It's very difficult to do that. In this sense, hence it becomes very important that you take direct attributes which are there and indirect as well, overall goals for the organization. Otherwise, your projects will not be prioritized anyways. hence here what we do is we take those small projects, small use cases, and like just to connect it to the earlier discussion which we were having on the legacy system, we don't build it on the legacy system, we don't try to integrate. So just to talk about Lemnisk CDP, when we did this around 4 years back, we didn't integrate with any of our systems at the start. We just did a kind of proof of concept for maybe 6 months. So test the waters. We saw whether it is actually benefiting us or it's something which is technology which we don't want to get into. When we saw the success, then we slowly integrated it and build it over the next 3-4 years, and that's how the part of the planning is. If I have answered your question.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, you've answered. So I'll point it to you also, Francis. When you're looking at your goals every year, I'm sure it's not the easiest task to make sure everybody else within your team and at your level you don't have 4, 5, 6 people, right? You have a massive team working under you and people working under them as well. How do you make sure that your business goals are permeated down to everybody and the belief is in those goals is as strong within them as it is within you?
So multiple things. I think to start with, one is there has to be not just the. I mean, a lot of times, specifically, in the entire marketing to sales funnel, it's seen as a relay race, right? So top of the funnel does some nice creatives, hopefully creates some audience or maybe some website visits. The performance marketing remarkets to them. They create leads. They give it to the fulfillment teams. The fulfillment teams either call or do something else. They basically create receipts or whatever, I mean, places where money is collected. And these receipting things are given then to the issuance team to kind of issue. The moment you start looking at a relay race, everybody's job gets over, once that baton gets passed. In reality, it doesn't happen that way. I mean, because the customer doesn't see you as, a neat sort of assembly line. He sees you as one sort of amorphous whole, right? As an organization, and he's interacting with that organization. So 2 things are very important. One is if you're not able to kind of move things ahead, move it back, right? So that you always remain. A good example is take the sort of metaphor of a relay, and instead of that, think of it as a football match, right? Any great teams always ensure possession of the ball, and that's what you need to do: ensure possession of your customer. Right. And that might require sometimes passing it back, sometimes passing it forward, doing things this way. So I think that's one very important thing. That translating to KPIs would mean that even if you're, you would have some amount of outcome-based KPIs, even if you're relatively more upstream in the process. It's not that your entire KPI sheet will be that, but there will be some element which basically ensures the success of your customer to whom you're passing on, the next baton to. Right. So I think that is one piece. From a technology perspective, it's much easier for technologies which are relatively downstream because they directly impact some CX or they impact some revenue metric. For a lot of technology which is upstream, data lake, CDP, etc., it's very important to figure out how to create that straight line through some maybe intermediate technologies or intermediate pieces across, so that it kind of links to that downstream in some way. That's
a fairly interesting point, and I'd probably want to continue with you there. And we've time and again talked of, incremental benefits. We've talked of how you don't necessarily need to always be looking at the whole picture always, and you have to look at smaller wins. So when start of a year or a quarter or like you mentioned, probably 4 years, when you're creating that plan, when you're on that drawing board, you probably have a very big picture of things which looks beautiful. But how do you, one, identify your lower hanging fruits and the smaller wins? And at the same time, how would you ensure that the larger picture is still maintained, right? When you're planning for a year or 4 years, it's at times, I'm sure it's difficult for teams downstream to forget the larger picture and just be chasing what we're chasing today or tomorrow or this quarter. How do you ensure that it will always translate into the larger goal down the year or down 4 years down the line?
I think the key role for at least management to play is to keep reminding people of how does your current actions translate to the larger picture. Right, because anyways, there's not much. Most of the doing is being done by the team. So, I think that is very important to ensure that are you kind of replaying the larger picture or showing where each person fits into the larger mosaic, right? And I think that communication is I don't think there is enough of it in some sense. I mean, you can keep doing more, right? And it's always useful, right? So I think communicating as well as sometimes over communicating is important. Also, in some cases, changing tracks is relatively important. You realize that things are not working, are not going in the way you want to go. The means may change. As long as the end is being objective is being met, it's sometimes important to kind of say, okay, let's look at what are the other ways to reach the same goal.
Fair enough. And I'd probably, Girish, if you could help me, you mentioned that you don't always, at the start of the year might say 2026 we'll do 5x and so, but you are mostly focusing on the smaller wins or what's in front, the goalpost in front of you right now. The same question to you, how do you ensure that you still achieve that 5x by the end of the year if when I'm sure your teams are looking at that first goalpost in front of them, probably end of this quarter. How do you ensure the...
So I think the way it works is when you talk of the larger picture, and I think it starts with what do you want to achieve, and it's something, it's an organization call, and then you see that how I can contribute. But if you are looking at bridging the gap between the small wins and the larger purpose is, see, before you get into a tech, and tech of course is expensive, right? It's not like I'll pay 5 lakhs and get a big tech. We're talking crores over here. So you of course go through that phase of, deep diving and figuring out what is there really in this. I think you need to create that map to say, okay, this is what is going to be the real big benefit coming out of this, right? And then you say that what is the sort of timeline, it will take for it. And given the way the process works with any tech is, of course, there's a dialogue which happens, right? So the moment you are doing that dialogue, it's very important that also you make your vendor or partner understand that what is it that you're really trying to achieve. So that's the reason I stress really on, say, the business aspect, or how Francis spoke about the consumer aspect, because many times I've seen that, partners get into this whole they just get into that zone of, okay, this is the tech, this is how, savvy it is, this is the sort of features it has, and the high chances you get swayed into that and forget that what are we really trying to achieve here, right? So I think you need to be really conscious about that finally what is it that I'm trying to achieve. You need to be very clear in terms of each of these use cases. One purpose of those use cases is to make sure that you're winning. The other purpose of the use cases is to say that are you progressing, right? So when I say define 10 use cases, and I say I'll put it in the metrics of saying one is on the effort basis, which use case takes how much time and effort. Other is on the impact basis, and that's where you do your sort of mathematics to say that I may want to start with a low impact use case, but if it is also a low effort use case, because I want to show that win not just to management but also to my people, that okay, you got into this tech, you're working on it, you can clearly see a win happening, say, in the next 3 months or so, and you get that visibility. So I think you have to go through all those factors, but the key point is you as the owner of the project needs to be very clear that how is each step leading to that next flow. And you need to keep giving that confidence to the internal stakeholders, the external stakeholders, that you know where things are going.
Thank you. Lastly, Vivek, and we heard the bell a little bit back, but I really wanted to hear from you on this point, because you mentioned you have 4-year plans, and I'm sure this question, when it comes to a year and your quarter-on-quarter growth, reaching that year-end goal is still seems, at least from here, still seems like a slightly easier problem. How do you track it over 4 years?
So 4 years, like I mentioned, it's for vision. You define your vision, what you want to do in the project or in terms of technology or use case over the 4 years. It's important here that then this vision is also percolated to the last mile. See, this part is very important. Sometimes we can miss on this part because the communication will drive the alignment. If the communication is not there with the person who is actually executing, the alignment will not be there. But not necessarily the person, the last mile will be able to visualize or agree with your vision there. Hence, it's important that then you break this up into multiple small projects or small parts of the which has to be executed. This is where then you define the success metric. Hence, the person who's actually executing knows that over the next 3 months has to reach the goalpost, this goalpost, which he or she is able to see. Once that happens, slowly you then progress on the project over the next 4 years, and that's how we have been doing this over the last many years in terms of LRS.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we've all learned a lot from this session about strategy and adopting technology. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Francis, Girish, Vivek, and Shubham for the very interesting and insightful conversation. I would now like to invite Rinku to the stage to present a token of appreciation to the panelists.